Week in review, October 2nd, 2023. Going to start off with comments. At PandyBear24. Dave, you mentioned that you don't like bodybuilding on Jocko's podcast. I don't either. What are your reasons for not liking bodybuilding? I think the bodybuilding scene is so much more about looks and vanity than performance. And CrossFit and the style of training we do, you're really measuring your work capacity and you're measuring your performance, your engine, and your performance as a system to see results. You're not seeing how big your biceps are or isolating movements. So those are the reasons why I'm not a fan of bodybuilding. I also, I don't care about those things. I care about performance rather than aesthetics, to that degree. That being said, for those who are into bodybuilding and those who are using that as a way to work out, I don't discourage that. I think you're moving, you're doing something, it's better than nothing. I'm just personally not a fan. At Abby V6832, never forget the team series. Can we do it again? I can do RX now. Can't wait to volunteer at the games next year. The team series was super cool. The team series was something we did online after the games for several years. We probably haven't done it in 3 or 4. And we had pairs, we had teams of 4. I think we had mixed gender pairs, we had same gender pairs, and we put out online workouts, kind of like the Open, but later in the year. It never had the same reach or the same engagement as the Open did, but there were a number of people who did it and enjoyed it. I thought it was cool. Maybe we'll bring that back or something like that back. At Mike Olivia, so pool boy. What's up, Dave? Still riding high from that 70-point Dolphins win? No, especially not after yesterday where they got crushed by the Buffalo Bills. Hopefully by the time the next week in review comes up, the Dolphins came out on top against the Bills. They did not. Would love to see your Finns play my 49ers in the Super Bowl for a rematch of Super Bowl 19. We all know how that ended. We do all know how that ended. Also, that Super Bowl 19 and that game was when I officially first became a Dolphins fan. And so the Dolphins played the Niners in Super Bowl 19. It was at Stanford, so not far from here, from the ranch. And I remember my dad had tickets to the game, and I was like 6 or 7 at the time. And so he went and watched the game, and I watched from home on TV the Super Bowl, hoping to see my dad in the stands. Obviously, I had no idea, because I was just a kid, that seeing him in the stands was going to be next to impossible. But I watched the game thinking that I would, and it was through that viewing that I started cheering for the team in teal. And that's how I became a Dolphins fan, a Dan Marino fan, and to this day have followed them every season pretty much as losers, except for this year. They're doing great. At the Kruggernuts, love your weekly reviews. I've been to games in Madison 3 times. We have a 5th wheel, and we had the RV campground tickets. Talk about an amazing experience. With the games transitioning to Fort Worth, will those of us who have RVs have a specific RV campground for the games like we did in Madison? I know Will Rogers RV Park is right next to the arena. Super excited for the games to be hosted in Texas. Yes, it'll probably feel very different than Madison, but we will have something similar. We are working on an RV park and what that'll look like. More details as they are available to be released. At Marvista Dutch. Thank you for your weekly share, and thanks for taking on the challenge of programming visually interesting events with 6-person teams. Yep, back in the day, we did take that challenge on. Fantasyland was a masterpiece. Thank you. Relatable and easy to follow from the stands, given the high rig, plate colors, and segments on the field. Most Big Bob events have been easy to follow. I tend to enjoy them as a spectator. There is a gladiator-like vibe to them. I think one of the reasons most Big Bob workouts are visually appealing is because of the slow motion nature of the race that is happening in something like a Big Bob event typically. There's a very clear line of who's leading and who's behind, and where everybody is relative to each other, especially when you do just straight up like big bob sprints down the field or sled sprints for individuals. One of the guiding principles throughout the years that I've had when programming any event, and I started thinking this way in Carson, a couple years into Carson, was this notion of, well, even let me back up. There's very often on all events we do at the games or even at semifinals, as soon as it's flowing and going off with no hitches, I will head up into the stands and take a look and watch and see how it plays out from afar. And I've learned a ton over the years doing that. And one of the things I learned at one point, or thought, one of the things I thought at one point was I want to create a lot of these events, well, A, in a linear fashion so you can see who's winning, and B, you should be able to leave from your seat, go get a hot dog, come back and sit down, look at the floor and see who's winning without having to do any complicated math or without having to ask someone. And so that's where you'll see a lot of these events and how they flow and why they flow like they do, is to try to create that visual. Also, to back to the Big Bob and the visual nature of it looking clear, I also describe a lot of these events as slow motion horse races. So creating them in this idea of this fashion to where it is a slow motion horse race, or any race. I just like using that as an example. Races in general, 400 meter dash, race cars, race car driving, horse racing, all of that stuff is super intuitive to watch because it's easy to tell who's in front and who's losing. So in our events, using some of those, not concepts, but taking that into consideration when making them helps with the visual. At Han Solo Way, Dave, do you think a games level female could make it through BUDS and SQT? So there, even recently, I was just told there was a female who was going through BUDS, Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training. It's the selection to become a SEAL. I think if they probably, I don't know if, I can't say that any of the games female athletes would make it through BUDS because it's such a mental challenge and it's such a mental test that I don't know them well enough, most of them well enough to know if they have the mental strength to make it through, not because they're female, but just because of the individual. And what I mean by that is I'd say the same thing for a lot of the dudes. I think a lot of the dudes wouldn't make it through. A lot of the games male athletes wouldn't make it through BUDS. Is there some that would? For sure. Physically, I think the women in the games, those female athletes, are obviously more physically prepared to go through that than a lot of other non-high-level CrossFit females would be, obviously, because they're the fittest people in the world. Arguably, I mean, not even arguably, they're all way fitter than I was when I went through BUDS. Tia can run way faster than I was running. I didn't have the type of strength she has. When I was 18, 19, going through the training, I couldn't do half the things they did. But again, so physically, sure, but it's not a test. It's not a physical test. It's a mental test. So that part I can't speak to. So physically, I think they're totally capable of it, but that's not what BUDS tests for. At Oswaldo Moreno 3371. Hey Dave, congrats on moving to Fort Worth. Quick question, do you think this is a permanent move, or are you guys, for example, thinking on changing venues every 5 years, 3 years, or every year to different locations? Hopefully that makes sense. Have a good day. It makes sense. I think we're going to rotate the games and we're going to rotate venues on a more frequent basis, meaning we're not going to sit in one city for as long as we did in Madison or as long as we did in Carson. So I think I'm not going to say it's going to be 3 or 5 years. I'm not even going to say it's going to be 1 year. We don't know exactly yet, but there is a near-term plan that I can't talk about too much for the next few years at this point, but there's a possibility that it's not there for, there's a high likelihood that it's not there for more than 3 years for sure. And it could end up only being there for one. But so we have to make some decisions around that. But it's definitely not staying in one place for an extended amount of time, as long as I'm at the helm. At Karina Rain. Dave, may I ask what stopped you from being a competitive CrossFitter? Have you ever done the Open or will you? So I do the Open every year. I didn't do it this last year, last couple years. But whenever I was running it, I did the Open every year from the beginning. And I was, may I ask what stopped you from being a competitive CrossFitter? Let's make one thing clear. I was never a competitive CrossFitter relative to the level that these guys all are at. Even when we created the CrossFit Games in 2007, I was a good CrossFitter, but like at that point, right away, like I'm here and these guys were all here. I could have devoted myself to training for it, and I still wouldn't have been at the level they were, and I had no desire. I mean, at that point, I enjoyed what I was doing. I enjoyed organizing it. I was still in the Navy. So it never crossed my mind, and even if it did, it was so far out of the realm of possibility that I didn't care about it. So no competitive CrossFit for me. I'm just not capable of, and not interested in, probably because I'm not capable of it. At WIR. Dave, do you think affiliate program from places like Mayhem or Misfit is overprogrammed? They always have strength plus Metcon. Good to see CrossFit revitalizing WOD to compete with these guys. So both of those examples, I haven't looked closely enough to be able to tell you, hey, they're overprogrammed. But I think, generally speaking, when you have strength and Metcon, if you're not restraining the intensity put into the strength session, I think you're setting people up for failure. And what I mean by that is, if you're trying to max out a strength with maximal intensity, trying to hit 1 rep max, 3 rep max, or whatever, and then you're trying to go really hard and intense in the CrossFit workout for longevity, for getting people to stay with it, for getting people to stay interested, it's just too much. Now, if you're using, call it the strength session, and going 60, 70%, really using it to focus on mechanics, to learn, maybe even to warm up for the actual CrossFit section, that's a better way to approach it. And I think sets trainers up for success with their clients and sets the clients up for success. So I don't know how they're structuring it to say that I think it's overprogrammed, but if you're always trying to max out and then go maximal intensity in a Metcon, that is, I believe, overprogrammed, especially if you're doing that every day. But if you regulate the intensity on one of them, not as big of a concern. Also on that note, you also need to have dedicated strength days without a Metcon, where you really do maximize your intensity on the strength element. At Christian Kettler 3667, I recently started rewatching all the games behind the scenes. Everyone should watch those. I appreciate what you are to CrossFit and the games. Thank you. In saying that, we need a Rogue versus Again Faster type event at the ranch. Rogue versus Tier, is this possible? I agree. I think we need another one of those events. And I'll tell you what someone mentioned to me recently. It might have even been, who was it? It might have been Bill who suggested this. We should look at doing like a Team Mayhem versus Team HWPO versus Team Prvn. Now that would be a fun made for TV challenge for us to put on. Each one of those teams gets one of their top, or call it 4 or 5 top athletes, and maybe even the coaches have to compete in an event. So that concept is exciting and something we should probably explore. The chances of getting all of those guys to agree or to play is probably slim, but worth engaging, worth talking to them about. Finally, so we have an HQ all hands this week here in Santa Cruz. So they're coming to the ranch tomorrow to do a workout, and I've been for the last week and a half, been doing a lot of work to prepare for that. Been building out layouts for workouts, programmed a handful of workouts, tested them, changed them. Even now, I'm still thinking about changing one. They're all going to come in blind, so they don't know what they're doing, and I'll brief the 3 events. That's actually news. I just said 3 events. There's going to be 3 events. I'll brief the 3 events they're going to do tomorrow on scene, and we'll have a good time throwing down at the ranch. So really excited for that. Then we have a couple days of meetings and talks in Santa Cruz. I think this is the second all hands CrossFit's ever done. The first was last year. I wasn't around for that one, and that's like the first ever, meaning we never did any all hands when Greg was running it, and then we had that one last year, and so that'll make this the second one. But really excited for that, and busy week. Excited about everything that's upcoming around that, and then some other announcements coming soon too. That'll be cool. All right, thanks a lot. Bye.